Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hi, and welcome to Reloscope, the Relationship Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week, we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm Marie Stella, your host from Melbourne, Australia. Let's start the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Reloscope, the Relationship Science Insights podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Oktavelia. Are you the type who constantly asks where your partner is, worrying, or are you the type to ignore their texts the more you're in love? Or maybe are you a combination of both? Today, we'll tackle what it is that shapes our attachment styles, what they are, and how to be someone who is more secure. Guiding us through is Phoebe Rogers. Phoebe is a relationship coach and an experienced clinical psychologist with a demonstrated history of working across all ages, skilled in CBT, ACT, and other modalities, interested in family therapy, and experienced in clinical supervision. Hello, Phoebe. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Sabrina.
Yeah, how are you today?
I'm good. It's a gloomy day in Sydney, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and we're glad that you have come to our invitation. It's lovely to have you with us today. So, Phoebe, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what sparked your interest in becoming a relationship coach?
Sure, it was quite accidental. My parents are in the helping profession. They're nurses, so clinical psychology seems pretty natural for me. And I've done a few different things in my career, but particularly when I was working with children, I realized that I really needed to understand the couple system, the parents, helping them get along in their relationship, and also having my own struggles in dating and finding love. So I put my profession under the microscope. I did lots of study, and here I am with this specialty.
I see. And as we were talking today about attachment styles, what are they? What are attachment styles?
The best way to think about attachment styles is how we bond and connect, and that's formed very early in life. As soon as we come into this world, it really depends on how responsive our own caregiver is to us. That depends on their temperament and their stress, and that impacts how emotionally available, reliable, present, consistent they can be, and can they soothe our emotions as an infant. And that imprint develops across those early months of life, and it follows us throughout the lifespan, actually.
I see. So it's basically part of the way we were nurtured as we were kids and as we were babies.
Exactly. And then how we go on to keep bonding and connecting and develop those relationships. Exactly.
I see. That's a really great preface to our topic for the day. But before we can continue further into the topic, we have a segment that we called Have You Met Phoebe? Okay, so Phoebe, we'd like to get to know you better. So first question, what is your favorite book?
I had to think about this. There was a book called Shantaram, which is by an Australian author. He is a criminal. He leaves jail. He ends up living and working in the slums in India, but it's like a fascinating true story. It's incredible.
That's wonderful. Wonderful recommendation. We'll have to check it out. And what movie have you enjoyed recently?
I saw Conclave, which was part of the Italian and British film festivals about the choosing of the Pope. It was like really interesting. Really interesting story. Yes.
Conclave. I'll write that down. And are you listening to any podcasts at the moment, Phoebe?
I am. I am listening to one called Divergent Conversations, which I really love, which is all about neurodiversity, autism, ADHD.
ADHD. That's a wonderful topic. Quite niche. And do you have any role model in life or in your work?
I do. I have a business mentor who's another clinical psychologist, and I just love and appreciate her work. And she really advocates for self care in the profession.
I see. It's wonderful to have a role model in your work, right? And is there a course that has inspired you throughout the years?
Of course, really, my counseling training was very pivotal in terms of really building a connection with my clients. It took the relationship with my clients to a whole other level, definitely.
Yeah, and that brings us to our topic, which is relationships that you have learned throughout these years. And for starters, as we jump into our topic, how would you define relationships?
So, relationships can have two or more people in it, and it's how we interact, how we connect is kind of the space, the closeness, the boundaries, the distance. It's kind of those rules that we all interact under, and yeah, how we connect and bond.
I see. And we did touch a little bit on what attachment is, but can you remind us again what is the definition of attachment?
Sure. So it's if you think about relationships, I guess attachment is the mechanism in place about how we actually show up, how we bond, how we connect, and really our sense of safety and security with another. And so it would show up internally in our emotional world, in how we think about others, in how we think about ourselves, our self esteem. But it's really just think bonding, connecting. You know, is this person there for me? Can I rely on them? Is it a stable, safe connection for me?
I see. So it does sound quite interconnected with relationships, but according to you, what is the connection? What is the relationship between attachment and relationships?
Yeah, so I think they're really close, but the the attachment is really the mechanism on top, right? We can all be in a relationship or an interaction or a dynamic with someone, but the attachment is actually how we show up and how we connect and the kind of behaviors that we engage in to seek proximity and closeness, right? Or do I feel I can seek proximity and closeness with that person? Right? So it's this sense of like safety, reliability, predictability, how close I feel to you. It's kind of the thoughts, feelings, beliefs, actions within the relationship, actually.
I see. So the relationship is more of the overarching concepts, and attachment is more onto like the steps or the ways or the hows we create those relationships
Yeah,
between
and
each other.
the exactly in the really it's like the sense of security, right? The sense of security is really what it's all about. Like, are you emotionally available to me and am I emotionally available to you?
And why is that important in understanding our attachment styles for our relationships?
I think it's everything. I read a well known book on attachment years ago, and just like it opened up so much for me. It really is because of those early life stages and how we bond and connect. We're more likely to then show up in relationships in a particular way with a particular style. There's no right or wrong, but I guess all of us are regulating our emotions, our closeness to another person. I think when you understand attachment, you understand all your relationship patterns in your life. You understand your partner choices. You understand why you trust people. You understand why you may retreat in relationships. You understand your own emotional world and how you regulate your emotions or why big emotions show up for you in certain relationships. It's the understanding that can come from attachment theory has been unbelievable for me and for lots of my clients.
That sounds quite insightful. And I did mention that you mentioned people are brought up in different styles and that there is no wrong way in bringing up people, in bringing up our kids. And what are the different attachment styles out there?
Sure. So I like to break it down just to a more secure attachment style or feeling insecure in your attachment or bonding and connecting. That's a more simple way. So, if we're securely attached, we have this internal sense that other people are there for me, other people care about me, they care about my inner world, how I feel, and that they're soothing and calming for me. Like I can turn to them in a time of need and I will be soothed by their presence, I will feel calmed by their presence. And then I can restore my own calm and safety from feeling heard and understood. And securely attached people tend to have a secure sense of self, this belief that they're worthy of love and that others want to help and support. So you can tend to have a calmer nervous system in relationships and be less triggered, if you like, because there's just this solid foundation. But if you have developed this more insecure attachment style, which is no one's fault, we all inherit particular attachment styles from environment and parenting, you can be a bit more triggered within your relationships. And so within that, we would kind of think about an anxious attachment style or a more avoidant attachment style, or we can talk about fearful avoidant or disorganized, which is a combination, like you kind of swing between the more anxiously attached and the avoidantly attached. So when we think about someone who's anxiously attached, they're often internally heightened and triggered by signs of disconnection within the relationship. And so they can become quite hypervigilant and worried and preoccupied if things are not seeming okay. So they would overread, someone's unhappy mood as I've done something wrong. Maybe they're not happy with me. We're not okay. And then they could be distressed and then pursuing and clinging. So that's often the anxiously attached will seek closeness to reconcile, but can do it in a heightened way. The more avoidantly attached actually has the same kind of fears and worries, like maybe you're not there for me, we're not okay, I can't rely on you, or I'm not enough for you in some way. And because that's so distressing and overwhelming, they'll retreat. So one tends to go in for closeness, one tends to retreat and pull away. But both are kind of, anxious and concerned about the relationship. And so an avoidantly attached person can kind of look, very self-sufficient, independent, but there's big feelings within their nervous system as well. And then we've got, this other group of people who we'd probably say swing between the two. They've experienced trauma or emotional unavailability, an unpredictable caregiver. Maybe they feared their caregiver, and so they're trying to regulate their emotions and regulate their need for closeness, but wanting to trust, and it's difficult to trust. So they can kind of look like a mix of the attachment styles.
I see. So we understand what it is. What are insecure attachment styles, such as you mentioned, the anxious one, the disorganized one, and the avoidant one. But what are some indicators of a secure attachment style in comparison to these insecure attachment styles?
Sure.
How can we know?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think about this, when I was dating and, meeting my partner, and someone who's securely attached, they're pretty predictable in terms of reaching out to you, and you can feel pretty safe reaching out to them because you just know they're going to be there. So they're often calming to be around. They have a good sense of self. They have a good trust in people. They expect to rely on other people. And so they often have this calming and soothing presence. Yeah. And there's this kind of team spirit of within our relationship, we're going to talk things through. We're going to work on this together. We're a team. We're kind of in this together. And we're going through life in this relationship together. So you can imagine that has a really lovely calming effect on your nervous system and everyone they're around. They kind of don't overthink ruptures or conflict or disconnection. They can understand what might be going on for the other person and for themselves, and therefore not jump to conclusions.
I see. So more of a secure attachment styles actually are more, we can see they don't confuse us.
Yeah, they don't make assumptions. They often give you the benefit of the doubt, and they just feel comfortable reaching out, talking things through, right? Whereas a lot of us can internally worry and jump to conclusions and misread things and think that other people don't love us. But the securely attached person often doesn't have that inner conflict, that inner turmoil.
I see. So they would be more easily communicate to others and reach out and
Exactly.
tell their feelings.
Exactly. And be vulnerable. Exactly.
That's the important part, being vulnerable. But as you mentioned, we did talk a little bit about upbringing and how people are brought up. In what ways does environment and upbringing affect our attachment styles?
Yeah. So it's really important because the environment will have an impact on our carers and then what we receive. So there's often that interaction of stress and the temperament of our caregiver, which impacts our upbringing. And then there's this bigger background of what our own parents receive, the care they receive, which impacts their ability to give to us. So a more stressed out parent, a more stressed out family system will impact your attachment style. And so that can often help you have compassion, empathy, understanding for what you received, actually. So higher stress could be navigated, I think, more effectively by a securely attached parent and caregiver. But high stress could also have a greater impact on someone who's more insecurely attached and they might feel overwhelmed. That begins to impact their mental health and how emotionally attuned they can be to an infant. Right. So it's this interplay, which is really interesting.
Indeed. And as you mentioned, we are affected by our environment. But what are some other factors that may affect our attachment styles, maybe internal or external factors?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm thinking about if a parent actually works on themselves and addresses their own mental health, that could have a really positive impact, right? If people seek help in those early days, things can really shift and change. And then there's this idea, it's a flexible attachment style is flexible, actually. It can be strengthened, it can be further developed. We can actually earn security, but we have to learn to do things regulate our emotions, develop a sense of self, all of those things.
And I do understand that the importance of being self-aware in our attachment styles. It's important to understand where we are coming from. Are we
Yes.
in a secure attachment style or an insecure one? And what are some indicators of secure attachment styles? And how can we attain that secure attachment style?
So certainly being able to maintain calm and internal stability and regulate our emotions in the face of conflict, and to not take things overly personally, and to be cooperative in solving relationship problems. That's they're big signs of secure attachment. but it can be earned, definitely. It can be earned, as you said, through self-awareness and understanding your patterns. So if you're more anxiously attached, you might be putting pressure on your partner. You may be hot and cold with them. And so as you learn to regulate your emotions, you are bringing a sense of safety to the dynamic and to the relationship, which then means that your partner is probably more open to talking things through, working things out with you. And so you can create safety together. You can do the work of not taking every relationship trigger or conflict personally and understanding that you're a good person who's worthy of love, even in the face of conflict. And the more we develop that sense of self, right, the more we understand our own triggers, we can also have compassion for others, which again brings them closer. But it's really about sense of self. It's learning to regulate emotions. It's learning to talk calmly and understanding that relationships are cooperative. It's not one person's fault. You work together.
Yeah, and understanding that the fact that you are still loved despite being in a conflict and argument is quite an important indicator.
Yes. Yeah. It's really hard for some of us to hold on to, and that's understandable from trauma. If, in the past, a parent has turned away or punished us. But to remember, if you've chosen a healthy relationship dynamic, conflict is not the end of the world. Your partner still loves you. You're just hurt within that moment. So the other thing is to remember, it's what you're saying, in the face of conflict, we're okay and our relationship is okay and everything is going to be okay. It's just difficult right now. We're just feeling some things right now. So it's having that trust.
Having that trust. And you did mention a little bit about hot and cold and other traits in terms of having insecure attachment styles. And in terms of dating, what are the traits of people with secure or insecure attachment styles other than hot and cold?
Yeah, I think a lot of people can look securely attached in the beginning because you're feeling,
Indeed.
a bit safe and it's reciprocal and there's a certain pace. But with the more anxiously attached, they might overread, like, I haven't heard back from the person I'm dating. It's been 24 hours. They've left me on red. What's going on? Have I said something? What have I done? Am I about to be ghosted? So they can really and no one can help it. You just feel so emotionally overwhelmed and jumping to conclusions. You don't have that secure base. And so, you can then let a good thing go too quickly, I think, because you have often high expectations, like someone likes me or they don't like me. And if they liked me, they would be texting me more. And so the work is to try and hold space for what's going on for another person and not take everything personally. It's hard in those early stages, texting's not a great form of communication. If you're
Yeah,
insecurely attached, they're going to read between the lines. There might not be anything in it, but overread, create scenarios, all of those things.
I agree.
Yes, yeah. So it does show up. And I mean, just for yourself, if you're feeling quite dysregulated, quite emotional, quite anxious, you're not sleeping, if you haven't heard back from someone that's keeping you awake at night, that might indicate, right, a more insecure,
Yeah,
anxious attachment. And again, like someone who's more avoidant and struggles with closeness, they can look securely attached in the beginning. But when things start to get close and you're building that intimacy and connection vulnerability, that can feel a bit overwhelming and you might notice them retreat. So there are little signs, but really get to know a person in their full real life version. Yeah.
yeah. And if someone is surrounded by people, for example, like friends and parents who are insecure with their attachment styles, as you mentioned, avoidant or disorganized or anxious, what are the steps that we can take to attain these secure attachment styles?
Yes. So there's like inner work, there's work on ourselves, and then there's the outer work within the relationship. In some ways, accept people as they are. They've developed these attachment styles because of their life history, their background. It can't be helped. But they're using this style as a coping mechanism to regulate their emotions, to regulate their fears around connection and disconnection, to meet their own needs, their own boundaries. So they're coping mechanisms. And so just appreciate that in someone else, because if you can appreciate that in them, your attachment system's probably going to settle and not overthink things and not put too much pressure on someone to be something to you, right? Or to give you more than they can actually give. But you're going to get the best out of another person, an insecurely attached person, if you're secure, if you're calm, if you can regulate your emotions, if you can talk clearly about your needs without punishing, if you can appreciate their need for space and talk clearly about your need for closeness or connection. And then to remind yourself internally that how someone responds to you or treats you is not about your worth. You know, like remember what's going on for the other person, maybe what their background is, their needs, their inner feelings, their life experiences. Because it's not about you. And internally, remind yourself, you know, what makes you lovable, likable, a good human, kind, and be brave enough to be vulnerable and share your feelings and say what you need and allow shifts in dynamics over time and slowly. It doesn't have to happen straight away. But the calmer you can be, the more you'll get out of the other person.
In relationships, sometimes that is quite difficult to do because we think that our worth is portrayed by how we are treated by our partners.
Exactly.
And indeed. And what can someone who is stuck in that type of toxic relationships where they think that they are worth less because they are treated less than what they think that they're supposed to be treated do to achieve a more secure attachment style?
Yeah, I think it's very hard to be objective about the treatment you're receiving, right? If you have your own background of trauma, that can either work in you expect less from a person, or maybe you expect more and you expect perfection from a person. So working through this in therapy is really, really helpful from someone who can kind of take, you know, another perspective and step back and really look at the dynamics. But a dysregulated nervous system, high anxiety about the state of the relationship, feeling depleted, feeling flat, they're feeling like you're on eggshells and you're becoming a different person and you can't be yourself. They're warning signs and they're alarm bells. And it can be really hard to accept the voices of those around you saying, I'm worried about you, you deserve more. But often those concerned voices of family and friends are correct. So try and take that in. And the other thing I would say, a lot of us struggle to believe that we can have a happy, healthy relationship and that we deserve good treatment. A lot of us struggle to think we could have a partner or friends or people in our lives who are reliable, consistent, stable, show up for us, care about how we feel, because we've never experienced that before. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It exists. But you have to do the first thing of not settling, right? And yeah, these things can be quite difficult to leave. So have compassion for yourself if you're struggling to leave an unhealthy dynamic. That can take a lot of kind of work and courage and bravery and time and patience with yourself.
Yeah. And at times, some people think leaving this toxic relationships can just mean just leaving the relationship itself. But some couples actually have good meaning in their relationship despite have their upbringing create this insecure attachment styles, and they both want to fix themselves. What do you think about relationship sessions and psychology sessions about for these couples, and how can they use that in therapy?
If two people are showing up, that's already a really good start, because two people are saying, I have a part in this. I want to be accountable for my part in this dynamic, and I want to work on this with you. So that's the first step. And that's often the hardest step, to get into the room with a trusted therapist. And then you need to find a therapist who's kind and balanced and can see the full picture. But certainly I work with couples who fight a lot, become explosive, not too explosive. They've become heated. Everyone's a bit distressed. They're not understanding each other. And when they start to understand, I guess, their true impact on their partner and their own part in things, and they can begin to see the things they can do to actually change that dynamic, like find calm, take time out, understand what's happening underneath the heated emotions. Maybe you're sad or hurt or disappointed, and express that differently. Things can really shift in a few sessions. And then from understanding your partner in a deeper way, maybe their upbringing, their attachment wounds, the cycle of conflict in the present between the couple, and how that's touching on attachment wounds, it's motivation to change and shift their way of communicating and fighting. So I would never say it's too late for any couples. I mean, sometimes that happens and damage has been done and everyone's hurting and they're too hurt to rebuild. But a lot of the time I see couples get this new understanding about each other, have compassion for their partner's story, and really do this therapeutic work of, like really showing up, communicating differently. If people are motivated, you can do the work.
Yeah, that's great, because once we understand that, okay, I am accountable for my part in this toxic relationship, we can both show up. And in terms of couple therapy sessions, what are couple therapy sessions or other types of sessions if people are looking to be someone who is more secure, who wants to attain this secure attachment styles?
Yes. So, like in a couples therapy dynamic, I think naturally you can develop secure attachment, because when you're hearing your partner's feelings, their needs, how they need to be loved, you can go, what they were saying, or if they were attacking me, they're just trying to get a need met. They actually love me dearly. They want to be close to me. They want to feel understood by me. And so all of this anger and hurt washes away. And so then you can develop a secure attachment, because there's a new understanding of your partner and new compassion for them, which motivates you to want to talk differently and work as a team. And when you get couples working as a team, right, that's secure attachment. This trust in you that you actually care about me, that you see me in your future, that we're going to go along this path together, that in the future you care about meeting my needs, I care about meeting yours. Yes, it can really be developed. Sometimes it's really slow work, but I've seen couples get there.
Indeed. And I feel like that's a really good step for a lot of couples to go and become. And how does attachment styles affect our relationships at large? As we've been talking about couple relationships, how can it affect other relationships as well?
So the most common pattern I see, I might start there, in a couple is this more anxious attachment versus the avoidant attachment style. And so one partner's way of coping with conflict in the relationship might actually be to pull away, to take space, to need some time for themselves. That can feel so abandoning and rejecting for someone who's more anxiously attached. And so often it's understanding those differences And those differences are both trying to get needs met, like need for emotional stability, safety, need for closeness and connection, need for peace in our connection. And so understanding that is really important. And then kind of what's the middle ground? So that's what I would work on with a couple, understanding those differences. But okay, my partner feels abandoned when I pull away. Can I trust that they will try and stay calm and communicate clearly? And then I might be more willing to come closer and actually say how I feel, because it won't be so overwhelming. So we just talk about those differences, how, people can navigate those differences, maybe compromise a little bit or negotiate their needs. So everyone can kind of feel calm and safe to talk and connect. But yeah, it can look like underneath anger, heat, crying, distress, there are attachment styles going on for sure.
Indeed. And as we mentioned, it's quite straightforward how to understand coming from an anxious and avoidant attachment styles, but sometimes it can get difficult to get into the middle, especially when one person wants to solve the argument then and there, and the other one wants to move away and like step back for a few seconds. What are the ways can someone get into the middle of that?
Yeah, that's
Finding
really
the answer.
Yeah. Yes, a great question. And it is the middle ground. It's kind of exactly what you're saying. Both needs are really valid. Like the need for closeness, connection, and resolution is really important to the more anxiously attached person. The need for space and boundaries and time to decompress is really an important, valid need of the more avoidantly attached. So I think it's trusting that you don't need to resolve conflict straight away. It's much more important for the emotions to settle. It's not to stay in avoidance forever. It's not to sweep it under the rug and never talk about it, but take some time to calm down. Do whatever you need to do, like take a shower, go for a walk, listen to some music. Try and, work on your self-talk and not beat yourself up so much or not criticize your partner so much. Just take time, make a time to come back and talk about it again. It might be an hour, it might be several hours, that's okay. But often the anxiously attached person wants to know that we are going to talk about it at some point. They want to know that they matter, right?
Yeah. And what practices can these anxious attachment styles do to be more calm? Because usually it gets explosive when
It can.
when people are thinking in like a heated argument.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I'm smiling because, I'm quite anxiously attached. I was. And so I had to learn to pause, right? And go slowly. The most helpful thing I did and my clients really love is take some time, step away and go, what is the trigger that's happening inside for me right now? What is so painful about this interaction? Is it about the present? And yes, it is, but often it's related to a past wound. And so, there were times when maybe in a past relationship or when you were young, you didn't feel loved, you didn't feel like you mattered, you didn't feel listened to. And so you tune into that feeling in your body and say something like, what's going on inside for me? What am I feeling? And what do I really need right now? If it's fear that I'm going to be on my own, you might say to yourself, well, I'm here with you. It's as if you're talking to that younger, anxious, scared part inside and offering the comforting words like, I'm here with you. It's okay when someone takes space. This relationship is safe. You deserve someone who cares about how you feel. They just need space right now. And so we're understanding and taking care of our own inner world. Because often I find people expect their partners to take care of their emotions and their inner world. And I think that's not their job. That's your job and you can do it. So for me, it's like thinking of the younger child inside and what they're scared of and you can almost picture like sitting your younger self down and having that conversation and reminding them they're safe, they're okay, they're lovable, they're good.
Healing the inner child is the best way to attain these secure attachment styles.
Yes. In my opinion, yes.
Yeah, it can be difficult. It might be difficult, but can you share a successful story of one of your clients that has reached the secure attachment style?
Yeah, I would say reach, still kind of reaching.
Mm-hmm.
So really, and this would be common to, I mainly work with female identifying clients. This would be common to a lot, but a lot of us have to learn to actually develop a connection with self. And that means a life that we love. So this client, that meant looking at her career, looking at her career goals, looking at the relationships, the friendships in her life, and were they actually supportive, deeply connecting? How was she showing up in those? Was she actually being vulnerable enough and allowing people to get close? So we did a lot of the inner child dialogue around connecting with herself and her own emotions. That offers you the emotional stability to then connect to others, but also find healthier others. Like if you have a loving connection to yourself, if you're present to your own emotional world, if you have a strong set of values and you've cultivated a life that you love, you're going to find that. And this person I'm thinking of, she did find that. She found that on an online dating apps. It's totally possible. Often it's learning to not settle, not get caught up with the wrong people, and actually trust that you deserve someone who's caring, kind, reciprocal. So I see it happen. Take some work, but it's important work to do.
Yeah, because attaining and having a secure sense of self sometimes is quite difficult because I think that is the most important part in attaining this secure attachment style.
Yeah, I would agree. It's true. It's like the relationship you have with yourself. It maps onto your other relationships. It's the template for all your other relationships. So it's cliched, but it's true. Start with yourself. So you care about your own feelings, your own needs, all of those things.
We also have mentioned about the childhood trauma and how we can help heal our inner childhood by having a dialogue with that child inside. And what habit would you recommend practicing to develop a more secure attachment style?
Yes, so I love inner child work. It's work that I did when I went to therapy. It's the work that helps my clients most of all. I see the most growth when they do this. So to go back and think of, the pain, perhaps things like emotional neglect that happened to you in childhood, a time when someone turned away from you, when you had a time of need, when you were distressed, or you didn't feel good enough in some way, you can go back and picture yourself. You can close your eyes, you could visualize, you could get out a little photo of your younger self. Some of my clients put it on their screensaver. And or we can journal or write about your younger self, and you want to either say or write loving words to that child. You want to give that child back, as if you're the parent, give them back the things they didn't get. So connection, I'm here for you. I want to spend time with you. I love being around you. I'm really proud of you. It's okay that you feel sad right now. You might imagine them in a difficult situation and actually say, let's leave here. You might imagine taking, your child's self away with you somewhere on a holiday, running away, just so they're safe and free. They can play, they can have fun. So whatever you felt was missing, you want to imagine giving that back to yourself, that love, that care, the validation, the worth.
I see. So it's similar to parenting a child, but parenting
Yeah,
yourself into a
it's
better child.
exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that is quite insightful for our listeners today, and they can try out the inner child work at home. And it's time for our next segment, which is the open mic, where you, Phoebe, can and have the chance to talk about anything you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be related to the topic.
Sure. Well, I think dating is very topical right now. And a lot of my clients come to me with dating dilemmas, things about struggling to meet people on apps. You know, the world of dating is changing. I had to navigate that myself. So I am really interested in applying attachment styles to dating, applying it to how we communicate when we're dating, how we maintain a sense of self. And I'm really passionate about giving women the skills to date so they feel empowered. So I developed a 3-part process which will help them heal, which is understanding their relationship patterns. You know, the partners that they've chosen, have they been stuck in the more anxious, avoidant dynamic, but not also said how they feel or what they need? And so we look at their patterns, and then we look at how they're going to show up more vulnerably and more authentic on dating apps. I help them avoid toxic behavior, red flags, emotional unavailability, and really going after what they want. You know, what are your values? What's going to really matter to you? And listening to your nervous system as you date, right? The key thing to really take away from whether it's dating, relationships, is how you're feeling in your nervous system. It will tell you if you're calm and safe in the presence of another.
So trusting your gut, basically.
Yeah, trusting your gut. Most clients I meet do not trust their gut enough. They want the connection. The little girl wound wants the connection. They want the love. They want the closeness. So they proceed anyway. So all about listening to your gut. It often tells you if you're going to listen. Yeah.
I have one question though. You did mention a little bit about choosing the right partner, and some people actually have the pattern of choosing the wrong partners. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yes, they do, often because of this pattern, right? We gravitate to what's familiar and the conditioning we received, but not necessarily what's good or healthy. And I meet a lot of women and they're dating someone who's healthy and kind and patient, and they're like, I don't feel anything. I don't have a spark. Like, I'm totally bored with this person. They're just not used to it, right? They're used to this familiar thing, the hot and the cold, the push and the pull, this kind of chasing dynamic, and they get caught in that cycle and they think it's chemistry. It's often a triggered nervous system. That is not a good sign. And so I say, take your time, sit with the person, the date that's a bit more boring, let it warm up, because you have to choose differently. As well as choosing differently, you have to show up differently. Like a lot of us, we stop ourselves getting our needs met because we don't communicate. We think, oh, are we going to be too needy or too much or too difficult? Or people always told me I was too much or too emotional. So you pretend not to have needs, and then you attract these people who can't meet your needs, and it repeats. So we have to look closely. Don't do
I
what's
see.
familiar. Yeah.
Freaking the pattern. And thank you very much, Phoebe, for explaining about attachment styles and giving us a deep dive on what it is and what it affects, how it affects our relationships. And if our listeners here want to find out more about you, where can they go?
Just go straight to Instagram, the relationship space, and you can learn everything about there. I've got a free training, which is understanding those patterns in dating and making the shifts that you need to meet your person.
Okay, so just Instagram, and we will attach that in the description. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Reloscope, the Relationship Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. For more episodes like this from 10 different life management perspectives, search LMSL on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you can get updated on everything we have to offer. We have a wide range of topics readily available for you to check out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating our show, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel as it helps us grow and bring you more quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website at re.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Marie Stella. Thanks for tuning in.